Hey, what's up, guys? Arctic Fox Airsoft here, and it's been crazy. I haven't uploaded anything real for a long time. I've just been streaming, so I'm active at least, but that doesn't count. You guys need a real video. And today I'm going to be doing the history of the Zutie Republic. And now you might be thinking, what on earth is the Zutie Republic? Now, the Zutie Republic is a thing me and my friends created, but it's kind of like in a way the SCP Foundation, or maybe you could say something else like that. It's basically a fake country or thing with lots of lore and lots of videos about it. Just basically, I think SCPs like kind of like that, but a little different and with countries and not as quite as big. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so this whole thing starts out in 1961, the birth of Joseph Kony, now the current president of the Zutie Republic. Joseph Kony, basically is one of the most well-known, or was the most well-known warlords in Africa, born in Uganda, and that's where he operated, in Uganda. He also runs, his army is called the Lord's Resistance Army. The LRA for short. So the United States military in 2011 did a operation to take them out. That is Operation Observant Compass. Now this operation is U.S. led, but it also trains many African nations to help deal with the LRA. This doesn't go as well as it does in real life. In real life, they end up killing Joseph Kony, and he ends up dead, and the LRA is basically destroyed. But in this, the fighting is much more fierce. There's casualties on both sides, and the U.S. end up not killing Joseph Kony. Even though they do kill the LRA, most of the LRA is disbanded, but a couple of them go to the Nigeria, northeastern, in the Yobe province of Nigeria. So then they rally up with Boko Haram forces, which are a terrorist group in Nigeria that the Nigerian government's currently fighting with. So those two forces organized together are a very good fighting force. So the Nigerian army does a massive offensive in the province of Yobe. It really does not go well. There's casualties all over the Nigerian, and they just decide to pull out so quickly they forget all of their stuff. Not forget, but they leave all of their stuff. And this is a very good thing for the LRA / Boko Haram. So then they get all of the gear, such as Hind helicopters, body armor, tanks, all of this stuff, and they get the surrounding population to join them. So now the Nigerian army kind of has a full-fledged enemy country to deal with that is coming right at them. And the Nigerian army really didn't do well in their last battle. So they really need to either step up or step down. So they decide to try to step up and do another massive offensive. This fails horribly. As you know, it's easier to defend in a war. So what they do, they had 2-to-1 odds, and you at least need 3-to-1 odds to win an attacking. So after this, the Boko Haram / LRA forces get even more gear from this. So it's like, you can see a pattern here. They keep steamrolling, and then they take more land. They take a couple of the other provinces, such as Borno and Gombe and Jigwa. Might have butchered those names, but yeah, they take over those provinces, getting more munitions depots and stuff to supply their small army. Nobody really steps in to help because they don't think this is a legitimate threat. The LRA forces declare the surrounding provinces their own country. They call this the Zutie Republic. I do not know why. Actually, that is up to Major Tally. I'll link his video. But they call themselves the Zutie Republic and put Joseph Kony as their leader. So with this more forces, enemies of Nigeria start sending in more weapons and ammunition. So the Nigerian forces really have a big crisis on their hands. They have an entire invading military that is just as equipped as they are coming right at them. The Nigerian military decide another offensive, which is really not a good idea. It's very bad planning on the Nigerians' part. So the Nigerians send another offensive that fails again. So then the LRA have lots of sources from the inside the government, so they can see which ones, which attacks are coming to them. So this is a big problem for Nigeria, as I've said, because they're losing most of their forces. 50% of their forces have now been used or are still being used in the fight against the Zutie Republic. So the Zutie Republic is pretty much getting more stuff, while the Nigerian forces are getting less stuff. The Nigerian forces also have to recruit more troops, which doesn't go well because they know how vicious the the Zutie Republic is. The Zutie Republic also introduced their signature cannibal divisions, which are combat cannibal divisions. They are very elite. It's very training, and this is a tradition that even goes on to today. So, yes, they are getting destroyed. The Nigerians are. So basically, after a couple more smaller offensive and skirmishes, the Zutes are confident enough that they can push up and take over all of Nigeria. This is actually a successful offensive. They're doing everything right. And this is because of the battle experiences of the soldiers from formerly fighting many different attacks. And these Zutes are very passionate about their cause. So they keep going, they get more forces. So then they get to the surrounding provinces of Ogun, Ondo, Edo, and Delta. Those are the last Nigerian provinces, but they are the most densely populated, so they will be the hardest to take out. So they destroy them one by one. They do airstrikes, weaken their forces, and then after about a year of fighting, which right now it is about 2017, they move up into Ondo, which is on the border of Lagos, the Nigerian capital. If they take over Lagos, then they'll have a very powerful military, and they will have Nigeria. Nigeria will be the Zutie Republic. So they attack, and after a while, after a couple of failed offensives, they finally get a good offensive into Lagos. So the Nigerians have all their stuff in Lagos. They're evacuating people, but they can't get it enough. The Zutes are very effective. They're very battle experienced, and they know how to fight. A lot of these people, a lot of the Lagos defenders aren't even soldiers. They're just civilians and police that pick up guns. So it takes about 6 months to take over Lagos completely. Now there is no more Nigeria. It is only Zute, and a lot of other countries just see this as a uprising that isn't very, effective. Not effective, but like, what's a better word? Probably not a threat to them. Which, oh boy, they're wrong. So with all of this, they have now arms factories because Nigeria produces a lot of arms, and they're one of the most powerful armies in all of Africa. Now the Zutes can attack different places like next to them. So they can attack Benin, Cameroon, Niger, Chad, all of those places. And they have one of the most powerful armies now in Africa. I already said that, but that is not a good thing for the surrounding nations. So then they launch multiple offensives, and it just steamrolls. They keep attacking countries. They got Benin, and then Togo, and then Ghana, and then Cote d'Ivoire. I butchered that name. It's really hard. Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and all this. They're gathering more military forces, more people, more stuff, and uprisings. People support this because a lot of these governments are very corrupt. Now they get all the way Algeria, Morocco, And they have pro-NATO relationships for the time being. That so they don't mess with the NATO stuff there, and they take over all the countries except Egypt. Egypt has a very strong military and good relations with the United States. They would not want to attack them. They get all the way down to take over the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, take over Angola, Zambia, Malawi, Namibia, Botswana with ease. But the Zimbabwean military is actually very effective in this timeline. And by this time, it's about 2020. So it's right now it's going on. So Zimbabwe and Zimbabwe and Mozambique merge into the same country, and there's Zimbabwe still. This is mostly from an invasion by Zimbabwe forces. They take the Zutie forces then take over Madagascar. Madagascar is extremely strategic, so that in the future they can launch possible airstrikes and set up a sea invasion from where Zimbabwe is not expecting it. So after a few more years, by this time it's 2024, they have got tons of military equipment, tons of soldiers through the conscription, and they changed their religion to a certain type of voodoo, Zutie voodoo, and it promotes people serving the government, which is not a good thing. That's one of the ways, and the people wholeheartedly believe this. I don't know why, but after developing all these forces, they're one of the biggest nations on Earth, and they've started to gather some attention. The UN by this time is shrinking in size. People are leaving the UN because of some bad policies and some corruption that was exposed. Also, a lot of people realized nothing is being done about nothing is being done. The UN just is saying stuff, but they're not doing stuff. So a lot of countries are leaving the UN. Mostly the countries remaining are in Southeast Asia. So after a couple years, they then start to the Zuties launch their invasion of Egypt. Now the Egyptian invasion is very successful. They're very fast. The invasion of the Zuties are very fast. So the Zuties lose lots of people though, because the Egyptian soldiers are very experienced. They're good soldiers, and finally they take out Cairo. Then they own almost all of Africa except Eswatini and Lesotho. Those places have not been taken out by the Zuties yet, and Zimbabwe and South Africa, sorry. But then they begin their conquest of the Middle East. They don't stop at Egypt. So Saudi Arabia is not very easy to take at all. So what they do is they airstrike all the major cities. They basically obliterate Saudi Arabia. The Saudis can't really do anything. Even though their military is large, they can't do anything. Also, Yemen, they take over Yemen and a couple of the countries over there. They end up taking over the entire Middle East by 2025. This is actually a very shocking thing because they have all the oil they could like. They have a lot of military equipment from Saudi Arabia, but they also do have lots of insurgents in Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan. But these insurgents actually like helping the Zutie government, most of them at least. U.S. military bases across Africa are basically surrounded by a small presence of military forces, and they're pressuring them to get out. By mid 2025, the U.S. sends more forces into the Africa bases to try to pressure Zutie and maybe start an invasion. This does not go over well for the United States because the Zutie do notice, and then they send in multiple attacks on American bases. These attacks are not carried out by actual Zutie forces. I mean, they are, but they're carried out by the Zutie Intelligence Agency, which is basically the CIA. So they carry out secret stuff. So these A couple of these bases raids were supposed to be from insurgents. That's what the Zutie government said. The Zutie said, we're not going to attack the bases. We didn't attack the bases. So a lot of these bases, the Americans were forced to evacuate. And they couldn't get back in because the Zutes wouldn't let them back in. So this is not a very good present or good for America, because the only American presence is now in South Africa and a couple aircraft carriers spread around. So 2025 the Zimbabwe military starts to mobilize and gets more soldiers. This is very bad, or this is Zute thinks this is going to be an easy grab, but the Zute, it's going to be like the Zute Stalingrad. Now let's transition over to what the other world powers are doing, such as China and Russia. Russia is split into a civil war after Putin can basically rule forever. So they're in this, it seems, civil war, as always. Just kidding. And then China, after being blamed for coronavirus, is bombed by some anti-communist terrorist insurgents, whatever you want to call them. They use nuclear weapons, and they do not know where they came from. So the Chinese are pretty much done for, because they nuked Beijing, Shanghai, all these places. So that's basically what's happening with the rest of the world. So it's not very good for the other countries. But the United States is thriving right now with a huge economy that is greater than it's ever been. And they have the largest military forces, 10 million soldiers in the United States military currently. But that does not compare to the Zute's militaries, which is 50 million soldiers strong. You heard me right, 50 million. Now, Zimbabwe was ready for the attack. They've been ready for months. And then one day they see it all on the radar. They see the planes, they see the tanks, stuff on the radar. So the Zimbabweans scramble fighters. The Zimbabwean fighters are actually very effective because the Zute army values quantity over quality. So they get to teach them how to fly the plane decently so they can't crash, and they just send them out there, basically. That's an exaggeration, but that's kind of what they do. So then after it's a massacre for the Zutes. There's lots of losses on both sides, but the world is starting to get kind of scared. You know, Zimbabwe had been working on their relationships with NATO countries and pro-U.S. countries, such as America, pro-U.S. I guess, not, but UK, France, Italy, those type of NATO countries. So the U.S. and all the NATO people are outraged, pretty much, and I know why. One of their allies is being attacked by the Zute Republic. So the Zutes are able to do very, very, very well. So the Zutes are, not the Zutes, the Zimbabweans. The Zimbabweans are doing so well, in fact, that they decide to start an offensive. The first infantry division of the Zimbabweans, I don't know what to call them, but the Zimbabweans attack. Now, this is made up of around 8,000 men. And then in this area that it's the 792nd Infantry Division. There's part of it, just barely part of it. Just like basically 10 soldiers just guarding this one area. This is a very big mistake for the Zutes, because they overlooked it. So the Zutes get a look on their radar, and they see that there's forces moving in. So the Zutes calling for air coverage. So the Zutes cover the air. They're okay from the air, but they're not able to do ground attack runs because they don't want to waste their planes on that, which is a start of an offensive. Why would you? And then there's one war hero, Jamal Mbappe, on a machine gun, a heavy machine gun, mowing down wave after wave. He ends up killing 7,000 Zimbabwe soldiers. This is a sense of national pride comes from this, and he gets the special rank, which is basically the Medal of Honor of Master Major. and promoted to the most elite special, one of the most elite special forces in the entire Zutie, the 1st Infantry Division, 1st Brigade, 1st Platoon. That's basically like the Navy SEALs or the SAS or that, like the top tier. So then after lots of fighting, the Zutes inevitably take it. Well, Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, is basically a Stalingrad for the Zutes. They lose millions of soldiers. They lose so far, or they lost 1.5 million soldiers, but they're just ended up shooting everyone. The Zimbabweans are desperate at this point. So the U.S. decides to do a secret operation to evacuate all of the Zimbabwe civilians and military personnel to South Africa, and then set up a defensive line in South Africa because they know that it's inevitable. So then the Zutes airlift them with their C-17s, C-130s, C-5s, disguising them as a Zute arms deal, or a Zimbabwe arms deal with the United States. So after this, they take over. After this, they send them all to South Africa to wait in a refugee camp. But South Africa launches an invasion of Lesotho and Eswatini. I think I made pronounced those names wrong. To make a new country, New Zimbabwe, for the refugees to come in. Now, it's going to be a split country. Some of them are split countries, just so you know. So, now New Zimbabwe and South Africa are the only countries left in Africa that are not African countries, or that are not part of the Zute. Sorry, they're the only countries. So Johannesburg is a prime target for the Zutes, as it's one of the capitals, and it's one of the largest cities, if not the largest city in South Africa. I don't know. So the NATO forces come in there, and they say, hey, if the Zutes attack, we're declaring war on the Zutes. So they set up a defensive line. They just set up a defensive line at it, and there's an air base that's a hub for all the U.S. NATO forces, Cape Town, and a lot of civilians don't evacuate because they're confident in the United States and NATO's ability, and they downplay how powerful the Zute Republic is. So the Zutes don't invade for another 6 months. This is a strategic move for the Zutes. I don't know, it doesn't really do anything, but then when they do invade, they send in 20 million soldiers, and that's not infantry. That's like logistics, airmen, stuff like that. They have a 20 million man invasion, but the only they don't have air and they don't have sea coverage. It's very, very dumb for the Zutes. So what happens is there's Americans push or hold the line, but the there's Task Force 1, Task Force 2, and Task Force 3. Task Force 2 of the Zutes is targeting Johannesburg. Task Force 1 is targeting Cape Town, and Task Force 3 is targeting New Zimbabwe as a country. So Task Force 2 makes a major breakthrough, destroying the Italian military people stationed there, and are on their way to Johannesburg. Johannesburg isn't evacuated because Zute radio jammers and phone calls, and pretty much it's blocked. The information is blocked by the Zutes to know that they're coming. Just so you know, the Zutes do not play by regular rules. They use white phosphorus, they use gas, they use all this type of stuff. They haven't really, at this point. So getting to Task Force 1 and Task Force 3 aren't really going anywhere. Well, Task Force 2 is already in Johannesburg. All they need to do is take it out. So over time, they break down the defensive forces of the NATO forces, and they begin to push through slowly. And many operations, Zute operations by special forces, get them farther in. And they encircle American and NATO forces. So then in South Africa, Johannesburg, which they expected to get in 2 weeks, it's taken 6 months so far and caused the Zute 6 million dead. So this is not a good battle for the Zutes. This is just, and then it's causing lots of more casualties. So far there's 15 million dead for the Zutes, and the Americans only have, or the NATO forces only have 20,000, or not 20,000, 200,000. The highest proportion of those are British forces, which were unequipped and untrained. One big factor for the Zutes getting in this war is they took down part of the naval. So they had a British fleet that had the HMS Queen of Prince of Wales. It was taken over and sunk by the Zutes. So now they have coverage. They have sea coverage over New Zimbabwe. This is not challenged because they have 500 obsolete ships. But with obsolete ships, they have a couple advanced missiles. So basically, right now in the Zutie Republic, they're rushing to Cape Town. They're rushing to Cape Town. They're already invading New Zimbabwe. They already tried a offensive directly at Cape Town. This did not go well for them. 5 million soldiers landed, and 4 million tried to return by helicopters and Z-tolls, which are basically Zute ospreys that are very, very common. Now, that's the history of the Zute so far. I will update. I will do more. I will do Zute weapon videos. I will explain Zute more. But this is just a basic history so far. I know it's fiction. It doesn't really make much sense, but we just found it to be fun. It's a fun thing to do, and fun thing to make lore for. So yeah, see you guys, and Arctic Fox Airsoft out.